Hey there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sends and Suppers podcast. I am very excited to bring back an oldie and a goodie and a homie and a best friend, Mr. Albert Oakes.
It's me, the one and only, not so good, not so bad, just okay guy, Albert Oak.
But he's gotten pretty fast in speed climbing, which is pretty rad. And if you guys haven't followed him already, please make sure you do, because this shit is wild. I stick to low grade pebble wrestling. He sticks to high speed, just straight
jumping.
So have you actually just recently PR'd, didn't you, in your speed?
I went like 7.2, but I'll go faster.
So just real quick, can you kind of put that in perspective for people who don't know anything about speed?
I'd say if you're going under 7 seconds, that's like V10 and up. So I'm like V8 in, 4 months. V8, V9. So I'm like knocking on the doors.
Wow. Okay. Wow. That's okay. That's crazy. Well, this episode is not about speed, but that's thoroughly impressive, my man. I like that. Today we are doing a little recap about our time in Salt Lake together, which was amazing at the World Cup. And I was only there for a small portion of it, but we both had an opportunity to sit down with the myth, the man, the legend, Mr. Boone Speed. And if you guys don't know him, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised that majority of you don't know him, but anybody who truly fanboys rock climbing knows who Boone Speed is.
We're talking about speed so much, but this is a different type. His name is Speed, but he also lives his life pretty fast, but also knows when to slow down at the right moments. Really.
Yeah. And I think if you guys watch his history of climbing, one of the first moments that he slowed down is when he created pusher holds, which was, it was a phenomenon. I'll be honest with you. I can remember an article where the pusher big sloper, just the image of that hand coming out was what inspired me to rock climb. And I would argue that I still have that art.
Is that the photo with Obi?
Yes. It's so synonymous. Mm-hmm. And his background, he really merged the concept of like old airwalk kind of crazy skate ads, and he brought it into the climbing world. So it was real cool.
He's sort of like the unseen. If you're a modern climber and you just walked into the gym, you would never know that he has impacted like every little facet of what you touch at the gym.
Yeah. 100%. And, if you've climbed in Salt Lake or you're a part of any of that crew, or you go to Joe's Valley or anything, like his name is anywhere. Like just take a moment when you start if you're in the Midwest or the West, start scrolling through guidebooks and just be aware that the man is literally everywhere. And with that being said, he has now ventured into making climbing boards. And the Grasshopper board, in my opinion, I think is probably one of the best boards out, because one key factor, it's the only board that I know that you can warm up on.
Yes, I agree. You don't see those happen anywhere.
Yeah, it's a huge factor, because anyone who's climbed on a moon board knows, like, if you get on that thing cold, you can kiss your fingers goodbye. Yeah. And a kilter board, you can definitely warm up on it, I think, but you've got to basically tilt it all the way up. Flat. It's got to be flat. And even then, it's still kind of like...
Same with tension, I would say.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable. It's sharp. I think they all make really good products, but I think that the thing that sets this board apart is the fact of the matter that you can warm up on it, and then it goes just as hard as any other board. And to quote Boone, any board at 40 degrees will get you strong.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting because he's taken every facet of his life and experience and poured it into this one product. And we're going to see the culmination of that.
This podcast, I definitely want to say, shameless plug, is dedicated and brought to you by Kaya Climbing, because they helped us get out here to bring these amazing stories to you that Albert's going to be able to bring. I'll let him tell you about it. But the cool thing about it is the Grasshopper board integrates with your training. It integrates with your climbing. So if you guys are on Kaya, let's just be honest. If you actually want to get better at your climbing, you should be on Kaya, because if you are not video analysis and watching yourself climb, then you are not going to get better. You can get better to a certain extent, but the days of just going to the gym and showing up and just climbing like that, I personally think are gone. I think if you really want to get better, you need to suck it up and watch yourself and get beta from other people and learn things. And I think Kaya is the best possible platform for that. and for you to get very simple gains and learn.
I agree as well. The best coach you have is yourself, and the second best coach is anyone else. So I'm actually making a video about Boone Speed too, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah. I'm being a jerk. I'm jerk. Let's talk about it.
But that's honestly, that was exactly what I was going to say. It all wraps up together. And hop on Kaya. Let me see your sends. Keep listening to Mario. Spread the word.
And if you guys haven't already, please join our sticker club for a simple thing of $5 a month, which is virtually buying me a beer and just hanging out. You get stickers and cool things in the mail. Sometimes it's a little love letter. Sometimes it's just the stickers. Sometimes it's a sneak peek of what's coming up. But if you haven't already, go to sendsandsuffers.com and join now. I'm looking forward to sending you some stickers and some love letters. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Sends and Suffers podcast. I am your host, Mario Stanley, and I have the privilege of being here with the myth, the legend, the god amongst mere mortals, the man that was living on Olympus, or still is on Olympus, but he came down to the rest of us mortals to help us out and figure out how to get on the Mount Olympus, Boone. And Boone, I'm not going to pretend that everyone knows who you are, because this is actually a really big revelation to me that Chris and I were talking about on the car ride to the venue. It's like, when I came into climbing, I socially I connect with more from people from your generation of climbing, but I don't know as many of them. I've seen videos, but I realize like those names aren't as synonymous as they should be or once were within like the younger generation. Because I mean, I coach 7 to 19-year-olds.
Right.
I love all of you, but you're all idiots. And so, so who are you? Where are you from? And what is your connection to the great outdoors and the climbing industry as a whole?
Well, hi, thanks a lot for having me on. This is great.
I'm happy you're here.
And so I was born and raised in Utah. I grew up at the foothills of some mountains here, like the prominent mountains that you see on the east side of town.
Okay.
And always, like, my father was a cowboy. I rode horses and camped all the time, sometimes with friends, sometimes alone in the mountains. And aspired at some point in my early life to be a mountain man. Like, that meant tracking and, like even like killing animals and things like that. Mighty hunter, like, mountain man style living.
Yeah.
And in my late teens, I discovered climbing, and I had no idea what it was about. Like, it was random that I was asked to go. And from that day on, like, my life took a turn in the right direction. It was critical at that moment in time. I was 19 and didn't know exactly what I was going to do.
Who asked you to go climbing?
Just an old friend.
Okay.
An old friend. I was working at a bronze foundry, and I was wearing some Patagonia shorts, and I had no idea the significance of these Patagonia shorts. And he was like, "Hey, are you a climber?" And I've said, "No." I mean, this is in the 1980s, before Patagonia was a household name.
Yeah.
And I had no idea. And he said, "Oh yeah, those are climbing shorts." And I was like, "Oh really?" And he's like, "Yeah, do you want to go?" And we went the next day, and I think I probably climbed like 360 days that year. I mean, I was just was just like, this is the life.
Yeah.
Snuck out of work early, just like did whatever. Like, I scrapped together money for ropes. Like, it overtook me. I was at home, like within, like on day one.
Yeah.
And with the next day and the next day and the next day.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, I mean.
And so your path in climbing, from what I understand, is kind of taken kind of all over the world, I'm assuming here. You've done
climbing and between climbing and photography.
I've done quite a bit of traveling. Yeah. So can you kind of like elaborate a little bit on, like, I guess, your climbing photography profession and like where has that led you? And then I guess, what is your fondest Oh, what is your most fondest memory doing photography, and what is the one job that you did with was more suffering than anything else? But I mean, you probably still liked it in the end.
So, what's the first question?
Tell me about your photography.
Well, photography. So I studied graphic design and photography in school, and got out of school early, like left school after my junior year of college, and I'd studied graphic design, and I was hired by Black Diamond, and I was working in their marketing and creative department, and part of my job was being a photo editor for Black Diamond. So I played that role for 6 or 7 years in the mid 90s, all through the mid 90s. And, during that time, I mean, my graphic design was very much 1980s driven DIY, like kind of spontaneous, fast, and fast, quick work, kind of that DIY style. Yeah. Punk rock, you can call it, but it wasn't so irreverent. It was more just like, my father is an artist, and he was an impressionistic sculptor. And so it wasn't overworked. It was only worked enough, right? And it was never overfinished. Never polished. Never polished. Okay. It was like the impression of the idea, right? And it has more of an emotional tug than it's not as crafty. It's just more artistic, and it's more. Would you call it like more raw and visceral? Yeah. Okay. Exactly. That makes sense. More raw and visceral for sure. And evocative, right? Okay. Emotionally evocative. That's interesting because so when you were doing that, you were creating graphic design for Black Diamond and Pusher. Yes, because you were one of the gentlemen that founded Pusher. Yeah. Okay. And then it's funny. So I'm thinking about this now, and I feel like just looking back at that, because when I first started climbing, the old Pusher ads were the things that I would find thinking that the only way I can describe it is you find your dad's nudie mags underneath the bed, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I'd be I was like, this is rock climbing? Fuck this shit in the gym. This is great. And it's it really did connect with you. And I don't think, it's funny now that you describe that, I don't feel like the ads do that as much anymore. Or maybe they do to the younger generation, and that's really what connects to them. Well, we were. So I'm glad to hear that. That was exactly what we were going for. It was more that those ads from Pusher that started my photography career. Really? Yeah, and that photography didn't exist in the climbing world. It existed outside the climbing world. It existed in skate and snowboard and some of these other sports. It existed in art, but it didn't really exist within climbing. And there was a lot of great climbing photography, but it was about climbing and space. It wasn't about the emotional draw of climbing. And I think that's what those Pusher ads were able to do. They became impressionistic. They were intentionally blurred, or there were lines blurred in there, and it was intentionally imperfect or emotionally evocative, so that and then Mike Call, who's been pretty much my we've lived like brothers for the last 25 years. He's an amazing copywriter. He has an amazing way with words, and he also breaks a lot of rules when he's writing. But he knows what rules to break in order to get the right emotional tug. You know what I mean? He knows how to say a lot with a little. That's a gift. And so you have poetic words with poetic photography, and you get those old Pusher ads. And that's the reason, going back and revisiting that, when Jared Roth kind of resurrected Pusher, it made me think so much about what drew me into photography in the beginning. And then it made me also realize what was missing presently in the late teens of the last 4 or 5 years ago. I started realizing what I was missing in my creative world, which was when you're there's no halfway. You can't, if you're going to be a professional photographer, you've got to go, in my mind, especially if you've got bills to pay and you don't have a bank account full of money, which I I have bills to pay and I don't have a bank account full of money. So I need to work to support myself, my family, pay my mortgage. Mm-hmm. And once you do that as a photographer, I think you have to start working for other people and selling your creativity. And that's not always as fulfilling as, when I started making photographs, I was making them for me, for my purpose, for Pusher. We had something to say. Those photographs didn't exist. That style didn't exist.
What was Pusher trying to say?
Well, I think Pusher was trying to say that climbing is social. Climbing is a social endeavor that is bigger than just the sport itself. And there's not just two of us connected by 100 feet of rope. There's a bunch of us sitting below boulders, like a skate session. And that this is a social environment that everybody is included. It doesn't matter who you are. Like everyone's welcome. Both, it's like when I was in 1998, I mean, it was like of 100 climbers, there might've been 3 women. You know what I mean? And now you go into the gym or any crag, you go to any crag today in 2021 and it's half and half. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely come a long way. I remember even when I first started working in the gym in early 2000s, it was definitely a sausage party 90% of the time in the gym. And I remember the first group of girl gang, kind of coming into the gyms that were adults, not teen kids coming up. And some of the guys were just beside themselves. And this is so funny. This is actually where I would always ask new employees coming in. I was like, would you date any of those girls? They're like, no, they climb stronger than me. I can't do it.
Guys are so stupid.
And I laugh so hard. They're like, would you? I'm like, baby, you can put my project up on top rope. I'm all good for it. I'm like, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and it's great to see, it's fun to be a part of this sport as it grows. And I think, a few things happened 4 or 5 years ago where, I was going back and kind of looking back at those Pusher ads. Like I said, Jared Roth, kind of resurrected Pusher. It had been living in a box for 10 years.
Yeah.
And it hadn't been what, it's like I left Pusher in 2001, I believe. Mike and I both left Pusher around the same time in 2001.
Creative differences? Was it creative differences?
There's a lot of differences, and that's neither here nor there. But it lived in a box for 15 years, and or storage unit or whatever. And Jared Roth kind of brought it back because he remembered it as a kid, right? Mm-hmm. And he was like, so he brought back all these old ads, and he called me, and he was like, hey, do you want to participate in this? And I was like, man, this is anyway. Long story short, it made me realize I was kind of like, I think I'm ready to start a company. And I want it, I like this climbing stuff. This climbing stuff is really cool. And I was doing some work, marketing, consulting work with the North Face, some of the gym companies, Blue Water Ropes. I'd never really cut off ties with these companies. I know a lot of people in the industry, and I started looking around going, I was involved, never a partner, but I was involved in SecoComp.
Okay.
For 5 or 6 years. Big part, I was very involved in that. Like I said, I wasn't a partner, but all the partners are good friends of mine, and I was part of that family.
You were a player in the game.
Yeah, I was a player in the game and helping to promote that. And as one of my best clients in the industry was back in the other industry was this company called Infinite Scale, and they were part of climbing. They're working with USA Climbing right now.
Okay.
It's so funny how all these really great people and all these really great companies, and how climbing and the Olympics and Salt Lake City and USA Climbing, everything is coming together, and it's almost like it's just like a black hole of energy here, mm-hmm. It's and really happening, and like, it just feels like there's something going on here. And, I was looking at these LED boards, which are used for training. And a lot of people have tried them. A lot of people have kind of seen them, but like it became pretty clear to me that they weren't meeting the needs of the climbers. I mean, I have literally a few of my friends liked climbing on the mood board in 2016, 2017. But virtually nobody else. I mean, I had a lot of friends that couldn't climb on it. They were just playing like, I can't warm up on V5 and that's not for me,
No, it is. I will admit that is probably one of the biggest things, especially about the moon board, because I've always liked that board, but it's impossible to warm up on it.
Yeah, it's tough to warm up
tweak on it.
Yeah. And I love that kind of climbing.
Yes.
And it's like, I get it. But what I understood more was like the concept, the technology, the crowdsourced route setting, what the lights brought to it, the boards that were going all over the world. And I was like, I think that this is the biggest idea out there. I've seen a lot over the course of 35 years in the sport, or more, almost 40 years now in the sport. Like, I've seen a lot of evolutionary dead ends in indoor climbing.
Yeah.
And a lot of white elephants being built taking up they cost a lot of money and they take up a lot of space and they're never used. And that, to me, the idea of an adjustable personal size climbing wall that anyone can climb on day one and everyone can improve on. I mean, I've got 2 or 3 Olympian climbers, the guys that are going to Tokyo, that are using the board on a daily basis. If not all of them, I don't know. I know that 2 of them are using it like routinely, and Nathaniel Coleman loves it, and he'll be our first sponsored climber on our team. And like, the thing is that when we've created something literally for everybody, and you'll never grow out of it. And so that to me was like, this is kind of worth going all in. If there's one thing I know, and I don't know much, but I do know climbing.
Fair enough.
I've seen it grow. I have a pretty good way of assessing a good idea from a bad idea. Like, I remember when I was being, in the mid 90s, I thought that bouldering was something pretty special. And I was like, this is a big deal, you guys. And I'd tell a bunch of friends, and half of them were like, bouldering will never be anything. And these are people that knew what was going on. I mean, in hindsight, that's ridiculous, right? Like, in hindsight, that is a ridiculous thing. But when the magazines would not publish photos of bouldering, if it wasn't like Midnight Lightning or John Sherman on something out in the middle of a field in Kansas, the bouldering photography did not get published. It was not considered legitimate climbing as late as like the late 1990s.
That blows my mind.
And it wasn't until Pusher and like Ben Moon's S7 company out of Sheffield, England, and a few of these companies. There was bouldering happening in Germany, but it was like all of this was like really like a grassroots like level, like Jackie Goodoff and those guys were climbing in Fontainebleau, but it was not being practiced as its own sport. And what Mike Call and I sort of identified when we started Pusher was like the intrinsic value of bouldering was the fact that it's done in a social setting. And that is different than climbing. When there's 2 people tethered by 1 rope, that is a different sort of endeavor than when you're hanging around a boulder and there's 15 people, nobody looks the same, and everyone's having a blast and kind of doing their own thing on their own trip, right?
Yeah.
Like trying skate tricks next to, like a whole group of kids trying skate tricks. There's always the best one.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because I've always felt like bouldering, climbing and skating go together more than anything else. Like, cause like even when I'm showing my kids like how to rock climb, I can't remember, I'll have to show you this after this, but I'll pull it up. But I have a video of this kid trying to do a skate trick, and he just fails and fails and fails. And then all of a sudden he fails, but he falls, and he's like, I found it. I got it. I got it. And then I freeze the video. I'm like, and I look at all my kids and I'm like, you remember that boulder, purple boulder last week? And he looks at me like that. I'm like, I'm looking to the 10 and unders. I'm like, you remember the green boulder when you fell down and then we told you how to rock and you touched the hole? They're like, and then I hit play and then he does the trick and he like skates off skates off into the sewer pipe sunset. And and I think that's so unique that you bring up. I think it's very beautiful that you're bringing up like more of like, it's not even the culture. It's like the nature of the beast within these subsets. And I think the big thing is what you're really describing on, which blows my mind. And you're right. In hindsight, hindsight is 2020, but it blows my mind that like anything that involves a hang, people want to congregate. I mean, think of like COVID. Like when we're all locked down, what did everyone want to do? Yeah. Just see each other. I can't tell you how many parking lot hangs that I had. Me and my buddies would drive to a random parking lot.
with lawn chairs and beers.
Lawn chairs, just make a big circle. And then everybody just comes in, sets the extra beer, or like I would put like an extra Nalgene. I'd be like, hey, I made a large old fashioned, bring some gloves, like wear your gloves, and then just pour it into your own cup. And we would just sit around and just like talk, and we would sit in the parking lot for like 2 hours.
Totally.
And people were like, cops would come by, like, what are y'all doing? I'm like, we're 8 feet apart. We're shouting at each other. Other people are across from the parking lot on the phone, just looking at each other, having a conversation. But like, this is the nature of humans. And like, we want to have the ability to congregate. We want to be able to do that. And I think that's like, you're right. Like pusher ads, like I remember them. The one pusher ad that is very in my mind is when you guys shape that sloper, that big baby belly, like beer belly sloper that has the bolt right in the center. And I remember this ad of this kind of blurred out of this hand just kind of going over it. I just remember seeing a very simple pusher. And like that ad just stands out in my brain because I can tell you where I was. I can tell you where I was, what time it was, what time of day it was when I saw that magazine. I was standing in Exposure Climbing Gym. I was there helping set for a comp. No, I wasn't helping set for a comp. I was there for a comp. I forget what I was doing, but I was upstairs and they had all these old climbing magazines and that. And I was just kind of like, honestly, just dicking off because there was nothing really to do. Like everybody else was doing these things. And I just remember flipping. And I just remember staring at this thing and I'm just being like, this thing connects with me. But like, I just like couldn't stop looking at it.
Yeah.
And I remember flipping later. And then I remember coming back to it and flipping, looking at it. And I'm like, I just don't understand like why this connects with me, but it got me so excited. And I can, this is super silly, but I can literally think of the route that made me feel like my hand was doing that exact move. And I remember coming down and I never told anybody this, but I literally got so excited on that route. And I was hoping one day I can get someone to take a picture because it would look just like that ad. And I'm like, but it was on a rope route and it's like in Reimers and it's probably Reimers Ranch in Austin.
I know Reimers. Yeah, I've climbed there.
Okay. Yeah. It's this garbage route, and it's only good in a certain time of year, but like there's Zoe's Wall. And then there's this like 2 routes to the left and there's this really weird, awkward, like really crimpy kind of laybacky 12 thing. But then the top of it turns, I love this route. Everybody else calls it trash, but you have to start with the like weird laybacks and you go into these shallow fingers and then there's like kind of like a pockety thing and it ends up in this just big hand open sloper that you just have to hit. That is the move that I was like, this is the pusher ad. And I remember that like it was yesterday. I just remember that. I was like fucking like.
Do you remember what that route's called?
No, but I will look it up.
Okay.
Yeah, my phone's somewhere, but I'll look it up. I'll tell you. But yeah, that route. Yeah, I never did send that route because it's like. I always went during the summer and it's like, if you know Reimers, you like sweats so much during the summer. So I guess in all of this, when was Grasshopper born?
So Grasshopper, we decided what it was going to be called, I think in the middle of 2017.
Okay. So how long have you been actually working at building this concept out? I mean, did you know, I mean, obviously you knew you wanted to make boards, but like conceptually, like when were you like, okay, okay, I think this is enough. Like it's good enough. Like, you know, number one rule of rock climbing.
We've been selling boards. We started selling boards in 2018.
Oh, very quickly afterwards.
Yeah. Like we had there were some early adopters and some forward thinkers. It's like, okay, you and I just met really in person yesterday, right? We're at the World Cup. It's 2021. Sorry to timestamp this, but whatever. But like, here we are in Salt Lake City, right? 2021. And yesterday was, you know, we just announced Grasshopper as the partner with USA Climbing. I mean, I had people asking me if we had any of these things out there. I mean, we've got like 120 something. We've sold 120 something walls, or like, yeah. I mean, we've sold quite a few walls. We had a good year in COVID.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So did. COVID kind of what we were doing in the the way that this started was all I wanted to do, the whole thing was started around making frameworks for moon, tension, and kilter boards, which were I had no intention of making a hold set.
Really?
Only frameworks. And I expected people to understand how important adjustability is. Turns out it's still a concept that is only understood by probably 1% of the people that I talk to. They really get it, especially old climbers. Yeah. Especially my buddies. Yeah. Good friends of mine who've only climbed on 40-degree moon boards are absolutely adamant that that's all you need. And I'm not going to argue with them. Just like my friend said that bouldering would never be anything, everyone will come around to this idea that adjustability is absolutely clutch. And, you know, you're going to see this whole concept really start to take hold, but we are still in the infancy of this. However, the reason that we've sold 100 and something boards already is that people all over the world get this. I mean, we're shipping boards literally all over the world. And that's, you know, there's 8 billion people. Like, it's not hard to sell 100 boards. Like, there's a few people that get it early. Mm-hmm. And it's just as more and more people get it, you know, it's like, I'm still being asked, like, well, where does the auto belay go? And you're like, dude, this is a bouldering wall. And they're like, well, what's bouldering? And you're like, it's an Olympic discipline. Like, you know, and you literally have to start people at A. A is what we realized by the end of 2019. What we realized is that all the tension, the moon, the kilter, none of those boards catered to the biggest majority of the climbers. And that is people that like everyone needs to start someplace. And when I mean everybody needs to start someplace, Nathaniel Coleman needs to start someplace every single day that he climbs. He's going to end on double-digit V boulder problems and World Cup competitions, but he needs to start somewhere. And that means you need to warm up. So that's where the moon board fails. You need to have enough dedicated real estate to specifically warming up. You need to have dedicated real estate to big footholds and big moves. You need to have dedicated real estate to heinous, slopey footholds that work nothing but body tension, that make moves really hard. Like this is nothing. This is the moon, tension, and kilter boards are all great. And I've sold a ton of adjustable walls to people that want kilter, moon, and tension holds. I've got no beef with that. But what we did was our hold set, we created a hold set last year, 2000. Basically, yes, I created holds, and we worked with Josh Larson to do the layout. So he's the coach of the national team. Yep. And he did a masterful job of laying it out. And what we realized is that I mean, the goal was to create a layout that does actually work for everybody, and that it works for beginners at, say, 10 degrees, and it works for, you know, seasoned climbers. I'm hard pressed to climb past 40 degrees, but like I'm like thrilled to do a V10 boulder problem too.
Yeah.
V10, V11. And I can do V10, V11, V12, V13 all day long at 40 degrees on this board. And it still goes to 50 degrees and 60 degrees. So
Jesus.
like it just keeps ramping up. You know, what we realize is that difficulty really kind of determines, or angle really determines difficulty.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's definitely a thing. And in the coaching world, I think the only other people who would really understand is anyone who coaches consistently. Like if you're actually a climbing coach, not just a strength trainer, you know, and I'd be honest with you, I'd probably say anyone that has actually tried to climb anything harder than, you know, 512C, I think would understand it. And that's like, you know, I argue this all the time in the gym. People are like, man, what do most climbers climb? And they're like, most climbers climb 5'9". Most climbers boulder V3.
The majority of climbers boulder V3. And they're flat out on like real V3, maybe, you know, gym V3.
Gym V3, yeah. Waco V3 will make you cry. Like anyone who doesn't agree with me, go do lobster claws. Yeah. Lobster claws will make, I remember I was like, I can do V4. Yeah. I mean, fucking
Dragonfly.
Oh, that rod is hard as hell.
And that was a benchmark in Waco tanks when they were making the V scale. That's the benchmark V5, one of 3 or 4 that they chose to be a benchmark V5. And so when anyone's talking about V5, it's like my head goes directly to, because I remember when the V scale was created, it's like Dragonfly is V5, and anyone can walk up to that boulder and fall off.
Yeah.
Like it's hard.
No, it's not a give me in any way, shape, or form.
And what's the other one? No one here gets out alive? The V2?
Yeah. Actually a jug broke off of that thing finally a couple of years ago. And then I think they went back and epoxied it on and told no one to get on it for like a week and a half.
And it's still V2.
And when the jug broke off, apparently it got a lot harder real fast.
Which doesn't, I mean, okay, now it's all of a sudden V5 because one hole breaks off. It's like, it felt like a gym V5. Like, it's such anyway.
Grades are subjective.
We digress, right?
We can argue the semantic of grades all day.
But like, yes, I mean, the vast majority of climbers, you know, aspire to climbing 511, you know, and V3. And, but that doesn't mean that the Grasshopper board is just a beginner's board.
No, it's not.
Actually, it gives everybody a place to start, whether you're a first timer or whether you're an Olympian. You need a place to start every single day you climb. And then you can progress through all the way, just like you need a warm up at Waco, even if you're going to go out and do slash face. Yeah. Like you need a place to start. And that's what our board does. And our board has been well received. Yep. Coaches especially love our board because, as you're saying, because it's symmetrical and because there's a lot of ways to coach on our board. Yeah. I was talking to Ryan Arment from ABC Climbing yesterday, and he's loving the board. And I it's like I so appreciate he's like, Ronnie. Oh man, he's unpacking like all that's built into this board, and he's starting to really see, and I credit Josh Larson with that, like the way that he laid out the holds, and he had a lot of I mean, he's such a savant at that, and he just did it, and it was like the board is, you can just it's unlimited potential.
Yeah, I'm excited to actually have an opportunity to play on it later after this, and then. It's one of those things of also looking at your board, watching kids climb on it all day yesterday. I was sitting there literally thinking, I'm like, I could probably, I was literally wondering, I was like, could I set some because what I've been trying to do on the kilter board, which has been really hard to do, I'm trying to set games on the things that I set my own rules for games and teach kids certain movements, a little bit of coordination, a little 1-2s, maybe even 1-2-3. And I find it super, super hard to do, but I'm excited to play on this. But I would like to kind of dive into going into having your own board. This board is designed for everyone and everyone should be able to use it. But I'd like to go into the argument, and you and I were talking about this earlier, that we run into about whether to buy a Grasshopper board or build your own. I know. from Home Depot. And for those of you,
I only laugh because I've tried. I know both sides of that.
Yeah. And for those of you listening to Home Depot who are the diehard, I'm a craftsman. Listen, if you're a cabinet maker, you're good. You're a handyman. Go for it. Like, more power to you. But in my opinion, the only thing that is equivalent from buying one of these boards or a adjustable board, a light up board in general, is building a spray wall. And if you want to do the math and building a spray wall in dollars, it adds up. It's thousands. I mean, like, I think like a decent, even in a home garage, like a decent spray wall. And you also want to have to understand the theory behind setting a spray wall.
You have to understand the theory, and you have to be pretty nerdy in order to do that.
Yeah, and I love it. Like setting spray walls are like, I definitely enjoy it. I haven't done it as much as I would like to.
We've sold a bunch of our adjustable walls, and they've become spray walls, whether it's at national gym chains or
really?
Yeah.
See, that's something I didn't know.
You don't have to buy my hold set to buy the adjustable Grasshopper walls, right?
No, but I think it would be dope to have the hold set built in there and then still fill it in
with spray.
With the spray, but going into building a basic spray wall in your garage, it's probably going to cost you, between holds alone, let's just say a 12 by 12, not even a 12, let's say 12 by 8. I imagine you're going to spend at least 20 grand in holds. Like, maybe that's not including volumes.
Yeah.
That's not including lumber.
So yeah, when you break it down, our hold sets and our lights cost $3,500, and you're buying all the root programming and the connectivity, right?
Yeah.
You buy you want to set your own spray wall, you're already into it. Like, if you want to do a real good, like, World Cup comp style spray wall, like a Japanese dojo style spray wall, you're into it, thousands of dollars for plastic. So why would anybody? So I'm betting that people will buy my walls. I've got solutions competing with the Home Depot starting at $2,700, and that's like, that's a good return on investment.
Yeah.
Right. Like, because that's not an adjustable version of my wall. Like, you would have to buy the adjustable apparatus on top of that. But like, at least you can get started rather than going to the Home Depot, getting a bunch of wood, getting a bunch of plywood. It's going to cost you probably $1,000 and a bunch of white hair.
Yeah.
That's, and you're going to still end up with something that you can't move. You're never going to make it really adjustable, because the engineering to make it adjustable is really difficult, and you have to make it very stable.
Yeah.
Like,
you'll probably kill yourself just making it on your own. Yeah. So yeah.
If you don't cut your wrist before trying during the build.
Yeah. So Home Depot Lowe's, Ace Hardware, I would not recommend. But actually, if someone this is just random question, but like, if someone buys your like fixed walls, can they then buy equipment later on to make it adjustable?
Yeah. Yeah. So you can
scale up later.
You can scale up later. My feeling is if you do the real math, you know that a good climbing wall for your house is going to cost minimum, even if it's fixed, it's going to cost $5,000 with holds, with good plastic and building a wall. You're probably into a $5,000. And for the price of a mountain bike, I can sell you an adjustable wall with LEDs, an app, and course setting for a lifetime.
And I think also one thing that people need to take in consideration is your walls are freestanding.
Yes, we have.
You have option for freestanding walls.
Yes,
the adjustable one, and then do you have options for freestanding adjustable ones too?
Well, the one that you saw at the World Cup yesterday is freestanding adjustable. It's analog. So it's like, it's gas spring assist. It works like a Murphy bed.
But it's still freestanding and adjustable.
It's freestanding adjustable. We also have like really like bomb ass walls that are, computerized hydraulics, touch screen, ease of use. Like they can articulate while you're climbing on them. They're much bigger beasts. They're in the tens of thousands of dollars. They're a commercial board for sure.
So, but like, let's just back up to that too. Like, I think that's the one thing that like people need to also take in. It's freestanding. Like, you're not building into the frame of your house. You're not trying to figure out where your load bearing structures are. You're not shredding anything up. The most that you might have to do is like fluff your carpet after you move it.
Right.
You know, but like that's like a massive thing. And I think that's the big thing that people aren't really taking in consideration, because I built a home wall in my buddy's, like, you know, he's a bachelor, so I built one in his living room.
Sure, I built a bunch of home walls.
It's just like the framing of the house, just the framing of the wall, the framing just to prep the wall to handle the load is a beast in itself.
Yep.
And I think that's the big thing, is because I think that's where a lot of people actually screw up in the math. They're like, okay, to build the wall, to build it this, and they design it. But then they forget about the additional framing that they need to make it truly load bearing and be able to handle that so the thing doesn't fall on you.
Right.
And so, you know, I'm definitely going to say this in this podcast. You buy whatever the hell you want.
Right.
Like,
for sure.
We're encouraging you just to actually, you know, use basic elementary math skills and a spreadsheet. And I'll provide a YouTube video on how to use Google Sheets if you need help. But like, just do the freaking math, and then, you know, lowball yourself. Charge yourself $8 an hour in labor. Lowball yourself, and then just see what it comes up to. Or you can get a turnkey solution, which can move with you, can go anywhere that you move.
Yeah, no, I'm betting on the success of this company. I really do believe that we're on the right track.
Yeah, I know.
I think it's going to take a minute for the only people that what I'm realizing is the only people that really get LED driven boards right now are elite climbers, because all of the solutions, all of the LED boards have been directed to V5 boulders and above, right?
Yeah.
And so like the normal climber that walks into a gym is not looking at the moon board going, oh, I need one of those for my house. They're going, oh, I can never climb on that. That's why I have a gym membership, right?
Yeah, and that's definitely a massive barrier to entry, because we have a moon board and a kilter board at our gym, and the only board that actually sees a lot of love is the kilter board.
Right.
And people always ask me, like, how come you only climb on the moon board? I'm like, because I like the holds.
Yeah. I'm a moon board fan.
I like they remind me of climbing outdoors.
Yeah.
And like all my friends are like, I just feel like they just make my friends gnarly. And I'm like, my fingers like all gnarly. And I'm like, one, you don't climb on real limestone. Two, I'm like, you don't climb outdoors at all.
Yeah, if you want to go to Reimers or any, like, there's some nasty climbing in Austin.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, like small holds, small grips, little pockets, tweaky holds.
And like there's like the wraparound thing. Like I was talking, I forget, I don't know if it was you or someone else, but they were talking about like, what's the weird, I was talking to Tyler about it. And he was just like, and when he was measuring my tendons and my fingers, I was talking about how like sometimes you grab a crimp and it's not like putting your thumb, and you actually have to lay your thumb sideways. Yeah. So you can actually, and like I've got my thumb cut up and you can pull in, and there are moves literally on the moon board where like I'm like crimping and I'm like laying my thumb on the outside of it just to give myself enough leverage to move around. So
no, I mean, it does feel like real rock climbing to me. It feels like American Fork Canyon to me.
Yeah.
And I like it. I mean, I'll sell you a wall and you can buy moon holds and you're psyched, you know. But I think in the future, people, you know, you can go to the Home Depot and you can make yourself a couch, but people don't do that. People have trained themselves to just like buy a couch that they like. Yeah. And they spend a lot more money or they might spend more money than just making a couch from stuff at the Home Depot. But like, that's kind of what we're talking about. You know, it's like, just
buy once, cry once.
Yeah.
Just get it over with. Like you do the same thing when you buy cams. You do the same thing when you buy all your other climbing gear.
Mountain bike will set you back, man.
I'm not even going to go into that world because it's like so expensive. You said something earlier that I kind of really want to like jump back to, because, you know, I knew this, but I didn't truly realize this, of like how much of like an entrepreneur and kind of like a industry thought leader you are at like paving the way. And you said, you know what it is in climbing. And I'm trying to remember the exact statement that you said, but
I know one thing.
Oh yeah, you know one thing. And so I guess my question is what is that one thing that, let's say someone wants to get into the climbing game, like whether it be a photographer, whether they want to make a board, whether they want to make add-ons, additionals, blocks. I mean, there's a billion things. Like the climbing industry is growing, and there is enough success for everyone to get in. But like, what is the one thing that people should know? I mean, if that's a trade secret, we can keep it.
No. I mean, the thing that I feel like, what I was trying to say is that I feel like I know how to assess Like I can, like if I can assess, like I have a pretty decent idea of like what actually is going to work in the real world, and what's like kind of a fantasy idea. You know what I mean? If somebody takes me to if somebody walks me up to let's say somebody walks me up to this crag, they say, I've got the best crag in the whole world. And let's say that, it's like, it's the best rock you've ever seen. And it's, they're just going on about it. And let's just say that it's at, it's at sea level, 2,000 feet of elevation. And we walk up to it and it's facing south. I'll be like, there's a major flaw with this crag. It faces south. You can't really have a world-class south-facing crag. I mean, there's examples of it, like Smith Rock, and Bukes, and some of these other crags that do face primarily south. But like by and large, the best crags in the world don't face south because they're in the sun all day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so like if you take me to a crag that faces north, I'll say it's got a chance. It's in the shade all day.
Yeah.
It's in the shade all day. And that you can control. Like you can't control the temperature of a crag. If, the crag in the shade is what the air temperature says it is. A crag in the sun is not what the air temperature is. The crag in the sun, if the air temperature at Smith Rock, some of the best days at Smith Rock are when the air temperature is in the teens. And, the rock being, the temperature against the wall is, 70 degrees in the full sun. So, it's like just little things like that experience putting in those 10,000 hours. It's like you end up understanding, really what's kind of going to work long term, what's a good idea and what's not a good idea,
Damn. I would have never, I mean, it makes sense because I think about that when I look in a guidebook. I just helped do this article with Beyond Clothing, a clothing company that sponsors this podcast, and they sponsor me. And
Beyond?
Yeah.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, I know those guys. They're really good friends of mine.
Nice.
Do you know Rick? And the rest of the guys?
But they're sort of they're quasi-tactical, right?
Yeah. They're owned by 511.
Yeah. I think that company's dope.
Oh yeah. I'll after this, we'll have to talk more about it.
Okay.
Those are good guys. But it's funny. It's like, I was talking to them and they were like, what's the most important thing that most climbers don't pay attention? I'm like, you need to know where you're going, what time of year it is, what the season is. And then most importantly, I was like, you need to know what time of day you're climbing.
Yeah.
And it's funny. It's like, I realize even though you're saying that, I'm like, I inadvertently do that when I'm looking in a guidebook. I'm like, all right, it's June. I was like, all right, we're not climbing at this crag. It's going to be in sun for like 90% of the day.
Right.
Like it's not going to be fun.
Yeah.
Fuck. That's wild. But yeah, that makes sense. Now I get what you're saying. And I think it really is just being like really just putting it really what you're saying is like just putting the hours in so you can kind of understand the nature of the beast and the nature of the sport that you're going to get in. Cause you kind of said it earlier. And I want to kind of phrase it as like, you just kind of got to do your hustle. Like you're selling your art, you're selling your photography. You really just have to kind of put your hours in. Cause there's a certain point in time, like, whatever niche or wherever you're going, I'm not going to say it's going to click, but the beginning of understanding begins to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that, one thing I want to back up and talk about real quick, just because I thought it was absolutely cool as fuck, because I've never met anyone who's actually said this, but you said your dad was a cowboy.
Yeah. I mean, he grew up in San Angelo, Texas.
But like he was just straight up cowboy for a living.
He was a cowboy for a living until he was a cowboy artist.
What is a cowboy artist?
So he's a sculptor. He was a sculptor. So all like his art was, he sculpted horses and cattle and cowboys and punching cattle like Remington.
Wow.
And his art is all over your neck of the woods.
Wow.
Dallas, Chicago.
What's your dad's name?
Grant Speed was his
Grant. Okay.
Yeah. If you go to say the Texas Art Gallery, downtown Dallas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
I'm making a day.
No, my dad was a cowboy. He was a sculptor and he was a successful artist while he was living, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I grew up in that world and I just, it's like as a kid, I didn't understand it, but like as an adult, like I've very much respect that. And it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And then when you say he was a working cowboy, is this like a ranch man?
So he used to work. I mean, he literally worked on the King Ranch. He worked on the Wild Ranch out in, so all of that area between, Austin, San Angelo, Midland, Kerrville,
666, all of that stuff.
All of that stuff. Like he was punching cattle on all those ranches.
That's funny.
And so he would go out for days by himself and bring like basically bring the cattle back to the ranch when it was time. That's
awesome.
And he, that was his life. He started working on ranches when he was like 12.
I've never actually met or actually talked to anybody who's done it. Like I've seen it, like, you drive by, and now I think the modern cowboy is probably nothing like that anymore.
Yeah, I know. My dad was very much a gentleman. So he was a Texas gentleman, and he was friends with like a bunch of people.
Was he from Texas?
He was born in San Angelo.
Oh,
grew up in San Angelo.
So you're family.
And I'm named after my uncle Boone.
Oh.
So yeah. So my dad was like, he was commissioned by like Nolan Ryan. He was commissioned by T. Boone Pickens to do work. Other people like that.
Okay.
The Hunt brothers, people like, your guys.
Yeah, no.
Your boys.
Yeah. Well, they're not really my boys, but they're in my neighborhood.
But they're in your hood, right?
Yeah.
And so and through the Chicago connection, through the Chicago School of Economics guys, like Rumsfeld was a collector of my father's work. Jesus. Donald Rumsfeld. So, like that weird sort of connection between Texas oil and all that stuff and
that's
Milton Friedman economics and kind of weird world. Like,
it's funny. I've recently learned a little bit more about that, and it's just like Texas oil and that whole
and the energy sector,
that whole phenomenon. And it really kind of definitely it was well established. And then I think when Texas Energy definitely went privatized fully, it was just the web just exploded. And it really goes a lot farther than I ever learned. I never looked into it until the Texas Energy grid failed during the freeze. Right? Oh, it was. I mean, I wasn't too bad. I mean, I set up my tent in my living room. I had a camp stove. I mean, I was just camping. Literally, everyone was like, "What'd you do with all your food?" I'm like, I actually opened up all my windows, took all my food out, put it on the countertop, and just opened up the windows every day, wrapped all the pipes. And we know
this because we're climbers and we're kind of we live on the road a lot, and we know how to survive. But people
freaking out. I
bet. I can't imagine.
My neighbors were when they saw me, they saw me get out of my apartment, and they were like, "Is all your food on the floor?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, it's colder in the house than it is in the refrigerator. Yeah. So I'm just boiling water."
And people used to do this, you guys, before electricity.
Yeah, this was a thing.
Like people actually kept food for a long time, without an electric refrigerator.
Well, I was laughing at people. I'm like, everyone does this. Everyone keeps food out. And they're like, name more time. I'm like, in the winter when it's freezing cold, and you'd be like, "Hey, be all right. It's cold. It'd be all right. It's me in my car. It'd be all right." And I'm like, every one of you have done it. It's the same thing. I'll never forget my dad was just like, "Don't worry about the groceries. Just leave them in the car." I'm like, "It's going to snow." And he's like, "Yeah, but you're going to be off school. You just get it tomorrow morning. Go play in the snow and then get the food." And I'm like, what the fuck? I thought it was so silly. But now looking back at it, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Man, Boone, I want to thank you for your time, and I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to talking to you. And honestly, I honestly felt like you just fucking took me to school with rock climbing history and rock climbing and everything else. Because I've known a lot of this. It's a different knowing of it.
Maybe it's more just connecting the dots.
It is connecting the dots, but it's also putting context and adding depth to it.
Right.
I'm super excited to get on this wall. And I think the two most exciting parts about this conversation is talking about what you're producing and what you're making, but also talking about how the birth of Pusher really pushed you forward and really kind of I can see the connections, and I can see, as you said, connecting the dots. And it's really exciting to just honestly see that, because, from an industry standpoint of view, the rest of us looking in, it seems like magic. It really does. Like it just,
and it's not so much.
It's
you know
not.
what I mean? It's just observation and experience,
True.
and being thoughtful about it, right?
Yeah, but true. But I think, it's not. And when you're here, because what is science? Magic is science, and then magic is just science that's not known yet.
Yeah.
And so I think, but the thing is, the reason why I want to stick with that term of magic, it's like the magic of me seeing that article, the moment you said pusher, and brought me back to that moment.
Yeah.
Like that's it. And like that's why I would say it's like you were intentionally, thoughtfully thinking about like how to create this content, create this imagery, create this stuff that sparked that. And I think I don't want to take away from that. And I'm not letting you steal that from me, because that is magic, because that's the magic that made me fall in love with rock climbing.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah, man. So if people want to find you, get in touch with you, buy a board, or like, what is all the info to how to reach out to you or to reach out to Grasshopper?
We're at grasshopperclimbing.com and at Grasshopper Climbing on Instagram. And through that, you can get a hold of us. Perfect. And we've started just basically we've started to have dialogue with all of our customers, because we want to help people walk through like the whole sequence, what's going to be best for them. We have a solution for basically everybody. And that's something that has taken, that's what's really taken the 3 or 4 years to get to. Yeah,
I can see that.
You know, it's like you start with something, and then you start with an idea, and it's just like any creative endeavor or any endeavor, really, you start, right?
Yeah.
Just start.
Yeah. It's like I'm guilty of that. That's the hardest part.
And then just start picking your way, just like a stream, and the stream always flows downhill, and it's going to find a way back to the ocean. And you just have to remember that the true north is like we're going downhill, and sometimes it's just, you have to circumvent, take a circuitous route, but like you'll end up
where you want to be. Yeah.
So that's the creative process. That's what making a business is, especially for a new idea.
Yeah.
So the t-shirts on our site, that's easy to make.
Oh, can I buy a t-shirt?
I'll give you a t-shirt, dude.
Okay.
Can I have a sticker?
Yeah.
I want a character shirt.
Yeah. Oh, dude, your sticker is going to be, we got to talk about, I'll show you.
Just surprised me. I'm psyched to just see what you do.
Cool. I have an idea for your sticker. It's going to be good.
I think it's such a cool idea.
So everyone listening to this, if you want a Boone sticker, you're going to have to go to sensandsuffers.com or mariostanley.com, join the sticker club. That's the only damn way you're getting it. Unless you bribe Boone, then, he'll have some.
Yeah. I can't wait.
Thank you.
Cool, man. All right.